Thank you. Thank you for warm welcome and an introduction. As she mentioned, my name is Joon Park. I'll be speaking for about 40 minutes, but I'm afraid I might go a little bit overboard because Korean diaspora is a very meaningful topic, and also I've been researching this topic for many years. So it's something that is very close to my heart also, so personal. So I will skip the self-introduction because I'll be talking about me at the end of the lecture or around the end of the lecture. So just basically, let me start with my name, Joon Park, and I teach cultural anthropology, and I'll just start my lecture with that. Right? So Korean diaspora, I want to add, because in previous lectures, if you have heard about Korean diaspora, it's as if it's very historical. Right? It's a group of people who are outside the main homeland or motherland or whatever. But recently, diaspora is very dynamic, and now the discussion or studies have been incorporated into a bigger field or discipline, migration studies, and most notably, globalization studies. So people say that it is also other side of the globalization. Right? So how do you define global? What is globalization? Well, we're living right in the smack of it, so we feel it. We know exactly what globalization is, but in schools or academia, we are having a hard time pinning down what is really globalization. It's a multifaceted process, obviously, very complex process. It includes economics, politics, social, ecological even, right? So today, climate change has shown us that how globalization is really speeding up the crisis also, right? And then obviously culture. And South Korean society has been really surprised by how the rising, popularity of Korean wave and the K something. Everything is K something now. So at the end also, there's a little twist. I'm gonna throw it out there. There's a K diaspora. So let's see what that means. So in anthropology, it's my major, globalization is understood as a process whereby a series of cultural flows produce both two aspects, cultural homogeneity and cultural disorder, producing more complex images of the other, as well as generating identity reinforcing reactions. So we tend to focus more on cultural aspects, but more again specifically identity, because of so many movement and flows of things. As a person, we have been surprisingly, it's a very short time from maybe some in European countries, 18th century, 17th, 18th century, 19th century, but many countries is usually around 19th century when they claimed independence, like South Korea. And from that point on, we have gained this nation state or national identity very firm, and we believe strongly that everyone belongs to this one nation. So, but with globalization, we don't. We have very flexible identity, and so for anthropologists, this identity, cultural identity or cultural collective identity has become very important issue or topic. Right? And resulting, what we find is that there's a transnational culture or hybrid cultures oriented beyond national boundaries. Right? So right now, many Korean traditional cultural aspects, elements are being targeted sometimes or become a hotspot or kind of controversial issue by surrounding countries. Is also so. for example, kimchi or kimuchi. That was a big debate when Japanese, some group in Japan wanted to register kimuchi as in the international standard organization to make kimchi and sell, to register. And then somebody in Korea found out and said, how can Japan claim kimchi as their food, right? So, well, actually, Japan, this group didn't want it, was not intending to claim that kimchi is Japanese food, national food, just wanted to register so they can start selling in the global market, right? But the whole discourse turned into a national issue. And then Korean government came in and said, okay, we're going to register first. So there's like UNESCO World Heritage thing. There's a little bit of competition, but at the end, they have to settle because it's an international body says, no, you cannot really claim this very popular food that is very popular to be one nation to claim, have a monopoly. But everybody recognizes that kimchi is Korean food in a sense. But historically, or when we ask people, what is kimchi? You think about, image comes up, right? Very spicy, red pepper, right? Cabbage, right? Fermented, right? Kimchi that everybody enjoys nowadays, right? Now, I think major continent countries, you go to any market, you'll find this package of kimchi, right? But Koreans did not have that kimchi until 1950s and 60s. Why? Because Koreans don't like spicy food. Especially when I say Korean, it's 양반, aristocrats, traditional upper class. Doesn't like spicy food. They don't want to stimulate your body because you are always searching for meditation, learning, and something harmonious with the universe, cosmos, and all these things. So you don't want stimulate your body or pleasure. You don't want to seek pleasure, bodily pleasure. So it was traditional or royal kimchi that you may find in a fine dining, whatever. It's just white, just pickled cabbage, right? And then and red pepper is not native to Korea. It came from. Does anyone know? Latin America, main part around Mexico, right? And then during the colonialism, Portuguese merchants took red pepper, came to Japan, and through Japan, we received red pepper. And people say, oh, this is too spicy, too stimulant, so we don't want it. Right? But decoration-wise, it's okay. Right? Slowly, it's been becoming a palate of Korean people. Right? And then it was after Korean War, and South Korea was developing, and some restaurant chef or whatever cook decided, oh, the material isn't really fine, the meat or whatever, so why don't I put spicy pepper into it? And we loved it because it's like, you sweat and you release your stress, and all of a sudden Koreans found that they love spicy food. Right? And so these things, right, no longer one nation, but very transnational, going beyond national boundaries. So for anthropologists, these things are very curious and interesting aspects of it. Right? And then we have neoliberal globalization. Right? And we are now living in a very chaotic, confusing time of this world market, all connected. So if there's a country that goes a little bit outside the common sense, everybody's like, what's going on? And it's affecting everyone too. Right? So in the beginning of the study of globalization, people accused or labeled the whole process with the skeptic eyes that it's Americanization. Right? Well, in a true yes. Right? We are all wearing some blue jeans, right? Hollywood movies, right? Everywhere. even today, many countries have a kind of what we call the global premiere, right? So before it was U.S. opening the film, premiering, and then later on it took like time, maybe a year even, for other countries to release the film. But now it's just global because the movie industry is global also. Netflix, it's another part where Korean drama and film is also being benefited, but it still is in control of American corporation. Right? And then today, what we are discussing is about transnationalism. What is transnationalism? It's much more complex than globalization, and there are many, many definitions. But also, what scholars also point to is not countries, nation states, but many, many global cities. So they are shifting their unit of analysis, not nation state, but because it's very confusing, very problematic. So why don't we focus on cities? Right? So New York, London, Seoul. Right? So researchers are focusing on the city as a unit of research and how diverse people are coming together and creating an urban community that is almost important, significant as nation state. Right? So that's pretty much what I want to provide the context for Korean diaspora that is different from traditional approach. Right? But okay, what is traditional approach? Right? Well, diaspora has been very much closely tied to Korean national discourse, Korean nation. What makes Korean nation nation? Right? And also migration a bit. Right? So here, for a long time, well, not long time. Again, it's all since 19th century when Korea was liberated and gained independence and became Republic of Korea, modern nation state, that we have put forth this racial and ethnic homogeneity. We are one nation, a homogeneous nation. We are all the same, very different from the United States, very different from other European countries. Right? But that is a myth. Right? Why? Because if we look further into our history, or ethnicity, if we introduce the concept of ethnicity, Korea is actually multi-ethnic nation. Right? Why? Because three kingdom, we say three kingdom periods, is one ancient history. But three kingdoms are very distinct. They speak different languages. Right? There were historical evidence, there were interpreters between these people, and they even fought one another brutally, in a sense. So instead of arguing that there is one race, one nation, right, we need to, especially for the future, global Korea, that's multi-ethnic group. Right? And also, if we talk about multiculturalism, we have about 200,000 also who have naturalized to Korean nationality. So they are obviously non-ethnic, Korean ethnic. So right now, the Republic of Korea is multi-ethnic country in a sense. But again, this myth emphasized one family, one race, one nation. Family here is much broader, right? As a nation or company as a family. And this is due to the Neo-Confucian values that modern Korea has took from Joseon dynasty. Right? So in a sense, primogenital patrilineal descent. Our nation is basically a primogenital patrilineal descent group one. I come from, Dangun myth. Right? So one epic ancestor, right? The son of the deity who came down because it looks nice, right? So we have 5,000-year-old ancestry and bloodline. Right? So this is all kind of nice myth, founding myth, which all nations have. But we have to recognize, and now everyone recognizes that it's a myth. Right? But in everyday aspect, we do have some tensions. Less today than previous period, but 순혈, which is pure blood. We still have this concept of pure blood versus 혼혈, it's a mixed blood. Right? And sadly, we look down upon this mixed blood. And some small group of people would strongly argue that we need to get rid of or we need to move away from this mixing blood concept. Right? But we see that in different parts of the world too. Right? And also, for a long time, we had this discourse that we are a divided nation. One nation divided because of the politics, Cold War. And our national task was to unite again. Right? And some people still hold that as the most priority, first task of the nation. But I think 80% of South Koreans now say, no. Let's just put that into way bottom rank here. And we don't want, especially young people, I don't want to, it's too burdensome. So I'm not interested in that issue anymore. Right? So the myth has been tarnished, weakened. And diaspora was part of this discourse of one nation. So even people who went out of the South Korea still are connected to the homeland. That was the picture, right? Because Korea was traditionally a sending country, we call it, in the migration studies. People went out mostly, and very rarely people came in until 1990. Right? So that's the shifting point. From 1990, South Korea shifted to a receiving country. So they introduced industrial trainees system. So they started to bring foreign laborers into the country, marriage migrants. So that's kind of multiculturalism, migration, the other topic for the lecture. But traditionally, Koreans have moved to Japan, Sakhalin Island, Manchuria, Hawaii, and Germany, and the rest of the mainland of the United States. Right? And we see that as a traditional diaspora, the center of diasporas. Right? So this is kind of what you will hear from traditional a lecture on Korean diaspora. And also, basically, they will give you this outline, the brief history of the Korean diaspora. And there are basically 4 waves of kind of movement out, emigration in a sense. So started in the 1860s to 1910. Right? So Joseon farmers, laborers, emigrating to China, Russia, Hawaii even. So Hawaii is very later. 1903 is the first ship that left Incheon port to Hawaii. And that's start of Hawaiian immigration to Hawaii for Korean diaspora. So it's already more than 100 years history. In 1910 to 1945, colonial period, it's still farmers, laborers, but we add political refugees, people who are fighting for the independence of Korea. And then there is massive collective migration mobilized by the colonial government to different parts of Asia also, and also in Japan, in mines or construction sites. And 1945, I'm sure you know, the liberation of Korea and the modern history, beginning of modern history in that. To 1962, we have a small group of people going to Europe or United States to study abroad, very elite people. And then there's a significant number of Korean women who were married to US soldiers or UN forces going out. Right? And war orphans. Now they are coming back and they are also claiming Korean identity also. But during this time, we really, as a society, said complete goodbye to these people. You know, it's better off you go out. And mostly they went to United States. And also mixed race children, 혼혈, right? they were also encouraged to go to United States or other because you will have a better chance. That was the discourse. And from 1962 to present time, this is a kind of immigration, new immigration, contract migration to Latin America, Western Europe. So Germany is a good example, Middle East. But Middle East is basically contract, what you call guest worker. They go in and then finish the term and then come back. Right? So most of them came back. Right? But still, some of them stayed behind and doing business or other things in Middle East also. And then when we talk about diaspora, major discourse was focused on immigration to the United States, right? The Korean American population. But I would add there's a new wave or a period of Korean diaspora. And this is migration to different parts of the world. Right? So Australia, New Zealand, they have a very different pattern actually. Right? Even in Southeast Asia. Right? And then one kind of phenomenon that distinguishes this current stage is what we call return migration. It's a kind of weird, but very loaded term, return migration. Right? So personally, I am return migrant. Right? So I was born here and went to United States and came back. I could say came back. But what about second generation? What about third generation? Are they returning? Yes, theoretically returning to their homeland or ancestral land, but they have never been to Korea. They don't speak Korean. Right? So is it really returning? Right? So scholars have introduced the term circular migration. Right? So it's much more direction, bigger term that somehow they, as a group, collective group, they have moved to full circle to this homeland or ancestral land. So this is a new period. This is where I want to talk about Korean diaspora in the global age of global migration. Right? So a little bit different. Just to give you pictures, for the top left, the pictures, archive pictures of migrants moving to Manchuria and Far East. So when I say China, Russia, it's usually Far Eastern part, right, of Russia. And they, in 1937, people in Russia, the Far East Russia, were forced to relocate to Central Asia. Right? So I'll explain to that, but very harsh, but they basically tilled this barren land and farmed and settled in these areas. So they have this, somehow expert on really transforming a barren desert land into a farming land and living on this very poor environment. Right? This is, again, a kind of picture that is used by Koreans. Say, this is the massive labor mobilization done by Japanese colonial government. So they would gather all the labor power and start working on roads and buildings and dams. Right? And they didn't have any tractors or machine. They're all done by hand. And a lot of times you go and you'll be amazed that it's a concrete or stone cave that goes really back in, and it's all done by hand. And people say it's all done by Korean laborers. There's also a very interesting small, but a dam that created one of the biggest man-made lake in Hokkaido island. Shumarinai, I think that's the name of, if I remember correctly. And that was built by majority of Korean laborers. I know this because Japanese monk and resident found a human remain, and it was kind of weird that they found in a different place. So what is this? And they kind of automatically, immediately came out, oh, this could be Korean, right? And then they started to ask around, and then that was the construction site, and people who died during the construction would be just didn't have a proper grave, but shallow grave, and would be buried in various places. And then people are finding these remains. So they contacted, or actually met, my senior who retired in our department, and he was doing PhD in Hokkaido for cooperative caring, childcare program of this Buddhist temple. And the monk is also the head of the temple. He said, oh, you're Korean. Okay, so this is what I found. And then they found out that this is the remains of Korean laborer. And in 1917, I think, or what will be the 70th anniversary of the liberation. So at the 70, that's, I think, 1915, right? Is that make sense? I don't know how. I'm losing my calculability here. So anyway, it's around that time. Temple, Buddhist organizations, and our school, Hanyang University, and the civic organizations gather all the remains, possible remains, and from Hokkaido, they rode to all these different places, the major sites of Korean labor will be worked historically. And then for Shimonoseki, which is the port that's much ferry to Busan, it's popular route. From there, they took the boat and came to Busan and came to Seoul, and had a kind of symbolic funeral. And then they are put into this crematory in public cemetery operated by Seoul City. And it was a huge and also controversial project because they didn't really get the permission to take the remain. You probably as an ambassador, you will know that it's very complicated to bring a human remain across the human remain between the borders, and they just reported to the Korean government and reported to the Japanese government. We're going to take it then. And they based on this because the Red Cross agreement between Korea and Japan for a long time ago that they will do this, but no one has really done it. So it's like, okay, we will do it. Try to stop me if you can. But it was a Buddhist denomination, school, the Korean, it's all getting involved. So fortunately, they didn't do anything. They just supported from behind, not explicitly, but implicitly. So anyway, I shouldn't go off track, but and the lower picture is a picture from Hawaii plantation. So Koreans were working at a sugar plantation during this early 2000, after 1903. Right? So Koreans went to Hawaii first, and then around 1920 and 30s, right, they would migrate again to mainland, right? Or people began to go directly to the mainland United States. 이승만, first president, would go to United States to study and also have involved in the independent movement. And there's another famous 도산 안창호. 도산 안창호. He is the one who went to United States and found kind of first Koreatown actually in Riverside. So University of California, Riverside has a center, Korean American center that researches on this. The people there, researchers claim that Riverside is the first Koreatown because Anchangho came with a group of people and created a village of Korean immigrants and also worked engaged in the independent movement also. Other picture, more modern, right? So there are the nurses to Germany and then miners to Germany. So we had a kind of period where South Korea had an agreement with West Germany to send these workers and professionals. Right? And then this is the left below is kind of projects that Korean companies engaged in construction in Middle East, pipeline, roads, and other things. And this is a kind of famous picture. I think this was featured in Time magazine or in the main magazines, current affair magazines. So it's like, you know, full of babies by charter airplane. You know, it's just not one, but tens and tens be sent to the United States as kind of for adoption. Right? And many, not many, but significant number of orphans were not orphans. But there's documents-wise, they will be labeled, identified as orphans. So when these adoptees came back and wanted to find their parents, first they will be shocked that they weren't orphans at all, but because the records were fabricated or disappeared, they could not find their parents. So that's the kind of controversial. Right now, we are doing government is going on doing fact-finding commission on international adoption. So that's Korean diaspora, right, that we will learn about. And I'm sure I could spend many hours to go by these different groups. And there are many, many stories that we all hear about migration and moving between or across many borders. Right? So what is diaspora? Right? Let's talk about the kind of definition. And the etymology of diaspora is Latin, right? Comes from dia, which is across, and spero, which means to sow, actually. Right? See, some farmer sowing the seed, and traditionally you scatter, right? You don't plant one plant, but scatter. Right? So basically, it's a population that is scattered across regions outside the place of origin. Right? So that's diaspora. Right? Then, you know, come to think, you know, by that definition, you know, every place outside homeland is a diaspora, right? That's also a kind of funny definition, understanding. Safran, who's a very well-famous researcher, came up with a definition that is accepted by many. And so it's dispersed from an original center to two or more foreign regions. Right? So place of origin, so we don't really designate, we don't want to use the term homeland or ancestral land because it is closely tied to nation state. So it will be place of origin or center or, you know, that kind of, we try to avoid this nation state framework. And another is a collective memory or myth of an ancestral homeland, right? Myth of ancestral homeland. Right? And another definition is that or characteristics is not accepted and are alienated within their country of settlement. Right? So if some group have assimilated to the host country, right, they don't want to be recognized as a diaspora, right, and they don't think about diaspora. But there are a group of people who are not accepted and alienated within their country, host country. So they tend to then recognize, oh, we are diaspora. We are originally from that part of the world, right? And committed to the restoration of their homeland. Some very small group of diasporas would do so, right? Tibetans, for example, Kurds would also do that, right? So there are a group of people who are from living in the United States or Europe or other parts, working, committed to restoring their homeland. But the thing is, what is this homeland? Right? And it's creating a controversy or even problem in globalized world. So we say that diaspora is simply any ethnic minority who claims the homeland outside the residing country. And in that sense, current researchers, like postmodernists, which means post-nationalist, they want to break out from the nation-state framework. We need to have a more broader definition, include refugees, guest workers, immigrants, and overseas communities. Right? So when we include overseas communities, Chinese overseas community is a major diaspora, right? And Korean diaspora is also one. Not just Jews, right? They are historically been mentioned as a prime example of diaspora, but now basically there are many other different groups of diaspora. But one of the interesting facts is Black diaspora, African Americans, or when we say biggest group is African Americans actually, but they don't have a homeland. So, they say their homeland is Africa, but Africa is a continent because they can't really trace the countries or whatever. Right? So again, for postmodernists, do we need to stick to nation-state framework? Right? And so we say that diaspora is constantly in state of flux, right? And especially in the age of global migration, and should not be considered as an absolute or objective thing that exists in some permanent form. Right? So theorizing diaspora, I would like to approach diaspora as a form of migration, right? Not in a national discourse, national identity, but it is migration. People moving, crossing borders, not just one borders, but multiple borders now. And also what is important is compare and differentiate diasporas. Right? So I'll talk about this, but there are kind of 3 or 4 major Korean diasporas, group of diasporas. China, Russia, or Central Asia, United States, Japan. Right? So 4 major groups. They have a long history, right? And they have a very distinct identity. Why? Because they lived in a very different countries and different time also. So it's interesting to compare and differentiate these Korean diasporas. There is no one Korean diaspora. There are many Korean diasporas. And then there's actually Korean diasporas that I would argue in South Korea, right? So not just outside, but inside Korea too. Also in theorizing diaspora, scholars talk about politics of diaspora. And Tibet, Haiti, Cuba, Mexico. Right? Tibet was a very classic, right? Independence. But Haiti is basically, they have a department on diaspora, in government department, really actively managing, building relationship with people outside because many of them are living in the United States. Right? In Cuba, same thing. A little bit hostile because people in the United States and Cuba doesn't want to stay together or thing. But Mexico, right? Last time I saw is when there's a presidential election in Mexico, presidential candidates would visit United States and visit the Hispanic population to do a campaign. Right? So it's trans-border, transnational politics coming. South Korea is now same. We have emphasized the voting of the overseas Korean, which just started, I think, this week. Right? So Korean diaspora are voting on the next president this year. So it's also very important. Many researchers emphasize this triad of diaspora, homeland, and host. Right, relationship. Right? Obviously, diaspora is a separate group of people, right? And then they have constant relationship, sometimes hostile, sometimes kind of nostalgic, sometimes imaginary with the ancestral land, right? But also they have relationship with host country, society, mainstream society. So depending on this relationship, you have different characteristic of diaspora. Right? So I'll talk a little bit more about it. And recently, people are arguing, also researchers are saying there's an entanglement between diaspora and transnationalism. So diaspora is all about sense between diaspora and the homeland. But transnationalism is we don't need homeland. People are moving and it's more global. But because of the current situation, we cannot have everything. So people in everyday life, they are constantly, even if I reject, oh, my homeland is not Korea, my ancestral land is not Korea. Right? The people say, no, but you're from Korea, you are Korean. Right? And I have to say, yes, I'm Korean anyway. Because I can't say I'm Chinese, or I can't say I'm East Asian, right? Or some Europeans may claim that I'm European Union as a new identity. But still, the world goes around in this nation-state framework. Right? So diaspora is still important. But then in popular culture or job seeking or whatever, people are moving in not only one nation state, but multiple nation state and flexible identity. Okay, so that's kind of more theoretical, academical stuff. Let me give you some concrete examples of it. So a map that I got, so major group is Korean diaspora in the United States, 2.6 million, right? China, 2.3 million, Japan, 800, right? And so that's probably the biggest three group, right? And the rest is similar size or very small, but everywhere. Even you'll find some small community in African countries, actually. Right? And the new group I said is Australia and New Zealand. Right? And then actually, Latin America has decreased, obviously because of economic situation there, but we still have second and third generation Korean diaspora. Okay, so it's very diverse. There is no one Korean diaspora. First is historically we have grouped, and first is Koreans in China. Right? So oldest, concentrated in the northeastern region, like Jilin province, right? And the history, the Korean Chinese diaspora is closely linked to Korean communities in other countries also, including South Korea. Right? Korean Chinese diaspora, if I say not Korean diaspora, but Korean Chinese diaspora is it's kind of homeland on its own in a sense. Why? Because Jilin province was autonomous prefecture, and they have created their own identity, almost a nation closer to nation state. And they came to South Korea, but they didn't stop. They were now in different parts of the world. So you will find Korean Chinese diaspora in London, in New York, right? In Tokyo, right? And they will be identified as Joseonjok, right? Because that's the term being introduced by the South Koreans in South Korea. Right? And then another group, as I said, is Koreans in the Commonwealth of Independent States or Central Asia, former Soviet Union countries. It's because the immigrants were first immigrated to Far East part, but then Stalin, because of tension between Japan and Russia, they decided to relocate all Koreans, non-Japanese in a sense, to Central Asia in 1937, and they've been staying there for since then, and then using the knowledge and skills that they developed in tilling this barren land in Far East. They did the same thing, and they are now modern minority or elite in collective farming, and they introduced many inventions and new ways of farming in this Central Asian countries. And then also there's Koreans in Japan, and the biggest concern or tension is old comer versus newcomer. Right? The old comer is colonial period. So they do have a special status. The Japanese government have granted them this historical permanent residence. And this acts like citizenship. So what we found is that there was a period, a long period, where many of the Koreans in Japan were sent to North Korea. It's all kind of very historical, interesting process. That instead of living in Japan with discrimination, they rather go to North Korea, right? Because they thought it was a paradise. And they went in numbers. They, like many North Koreans, escaped North Korea, went to China, they came to South Korea. But then they are identified as a North Korea. So North Korean, so that's okay, I'm gonna go back to Japan. Right? And so they knocked on the door to Japan and said, okay, I'm originally from Koreans in Japan. I had the permanent residence, but I went to North Korea, became a North Korean, and then I became a South Korean. But now I want to be Koreans in Japan. And the Japanese government, okay, I'll recognize that status because it was historical. Right? So it's kind of amazing that that concept has become really natural idea, that very close to citizenship in a sense. So and people who have that status can pass it on to their children also. So this is very much close to a concept of nationality or citizenship. But again, for a long time, they lived under discrimination, and there's so many stories about it also. And used to be largest minority group in Japan, but they fell to third. The biggest group is Chinese, and then the second is Vietnamese, and the third is Koreans. Right? So 800,000, right? The number is less because that number is more cultural. So it's now much less, 60,000 or 600,000 or whatever. That means Chinese is much more. So maybe 1 million people living in Japan, maybe, and it's constantly growing. And the next group is Koreans in the US. So these 4 groups has been researched by researchers in many aspects of their lives, and discrimination and other things, identities are all been researched. And for Korean Americans, the most common topic discussed and researched is family-owned small business, right? And 24-hour deli, laundry, and other family-owned small business. And one anthropologist actually noted that it's a sister network. Right? So they found out that Korean Americans are much more closer to their the mother side. So they all know their mother side cousins and relatives. And then when they visit Korea, they are seeing for the first time their father side kinship group. Right? And it's a primogenital patrilineal descent. Right? They're very formal. Right? Their uncle or uncles and aunts. Right? They are family, but very different dynamics of relationship. Right? And the anthropologist, why is this? Why? Because Koreans, because of primogenital patrilineal descent, first son does not, or they're hesitant to migrate. So it's usually the second son or third son, right? Or the wife. Right? So when they go, it's family-owned business, and it's the actually wife that takes charge of the business in a sense, and they mobilize their kinship, family network. So not the husband side, but their side, wife's side. Right? So they bring also family migration is invitation. Right? So they bring not the husband's family. Why? Because then, if you are in charge of the business, you don't want to work with the husband's side, especially mother-in-law in a way. That's the last person to invite. So it's mother. Your mother, your brother, your sister, right? And they come and they work together and build this family-owned business. So the sister network is a very characteristic of Korean American small business. Basically, these different groups of Korean diasporas are different, but there is some commonality of experience and patterns of adaptation. Disadvantage, discrimination, but do have recognized as having a strong work ethic, aspiration for upward mobility, right? And focused on occupations that are relatively immune to social discrimination, like self-employed businesses, invested in children's education, right? And so in the United States, modern minority myth, right, is also not just myth, but there's a foundation or some evidence, and maintained a strong ethnic community. Right? But it's not natural that they have or would maintain strong ethnic community. It's when they have some relationship, the state of relationship between the host society changes, or that is strong discrimination exists in the host society, then they will naturally cling on to their own and create a strong ethnic identity. But today, they also utilize traditional networks connecting the homeland and host countries. So they are becoming transnational migrants. And the most research done in the United States about transnational migration is Mexican migrants. And actually, people who became rich, successful, they would fund their town to build roads, build the systems. Right? So there's very close transnational link between these Mexican trans migrants and their home town, actually, not homeland, but hometowns. 4 different groups, but in Korea, in South Korea, because of return migration, they began to create a new categories of Korean. Right? So according to the myth, we are all Korean, 한민족. But then when they meet Korean American or Korean ethnic Koreans from Central Asia, oh no, you're not Korean, you are 고려인. People from China, no, you are not Korean, you are 조선족. Right? So South Korea began to create new words to distinguish this group of people. Right? But generally, they were seen as 재외동포 or 교포. Right? So, but because of return migrants, we have terms like 조선족, 고려인, 탈북민, 사카린 동포. Right? So we began to distinguish these groups. And there is actually 조선적. Does anyone know what that means? It's a different Chinese character. 족 is from 민족, ethnicity. 적 is for nationality or affiliation. Right? And these people are small today, stateless Chinese. Right? So in 1965, when South Korea normalized with Japan, all the Koreans in Japan were asked to change or settle their nationality. Right? So you all become South Koreans. So then we can have a diplomatic relationship, right? And we'll do the national service through South Korean embassies. But many at the time said, no. I still want North and South to unite. I want to be a nationals to unify Korea. So they decided not to. So the Japanese government said, okay, then you are just 조선적, which means Joseon. It's a symbol of dynasty. So they don't have a nationality. So finally, later on, they got a recognition from the UN as a stateless, and they would have a special paper saying that they are stateless, but because due to international human rights, they have a right to travel, all these things. But now they have, most of them have been turned to South Korea. New term that I introduced is 제한 미국 한인. Korean Americans living in South Korea. Don't ask me what that means. I still don't know, but just to distinguish myself and people like me, I had to. So I will be called 재미동포. 재미. It means overseas Korean living in United States. But I have been living in South Korea for more than 30 years. Let me give you a brief introduction to my personal history. So I was born in the 60s, late 60s. You can guess my age. My family immigrated to the United States in 1982. right? So middle school, high school, college, graduate school education. And for some reason, in 1995, I decided to come to Korea, visit Korea, to learn about Korean culture and things. So came with a tourist visa. And that, at that time, people were calling me 재미교포, you are 교포. Right? But Korean Americans saying, why we are 교포? 교포 means kind of, 교 is actually a subjugate, a regional branch person. So it's from Joseon concept that central government, royal court in the center, and then other branches way down, regional. Right? So 교포 means people who are at the branch, the far outside. It makes sense, but it's pejorative. Right? So people say, no, we are same, we are compatriot. Right? So 동포, I want to be called 동포. So 재미 동포 was the one. But in 2000, so for 5 years, actually, I had tourist visa. And I don't want to go in detail, but every 3 months I had to get out and come back because that's tourist visa. So I ended up going to Fukuoka, taking the Asiana at the time, it was the cheapest. So go take the flight in the morning and then get there, go out and come back, write it out and get a stamp. So as soon as I get a stamp, then 3 months I extended. Right? So for 5 years, I don't know how I lived that way. But I mean, I went back to United States for a couple of months or whatever, and then came back again because I was doing different things at the time. And then I said, okay, this is crazy. I gotta find my life now. So I wanted to go back to United States, but in 2000, actually in 1998, there was a program, a graduate program on Korean studies. So, maybe I should study Korean studies as academic, not just experience or a popular culture, but I want to study Korean culture. So from 98 to 2000, I had a student visa for the first time. So I didn't have to go back and forth in 3 months or so. And then 2000, there was a new law, Overseas Korean Act, granting Korean Americans F4 visa. It's a permanent resident visa. Basically, you can do anything you want except political rights. You can't be go as an elected official or participate in election. So that was really wonderful. Also, there and in 2019, I decided to change from F4 to F5 visa, which is a permanent resident visa for all foreigners. But what I found out is that F4 visa is considered Korean. And how I found out is there's a 인감증명서, which is a seal, the certificate of seal. Right? So every person, every Korean has to register their main seal to the government office. And when you sell your house or do a major business, you have to have this certificate to verify your identity. Right? So I did that as F4 permanent resident. And I was within the Korean group. Right? And then after I went in 2019, I wanted to get my seal certificate. I said, no, you are no longer Korean. You have to get rid of this and then go to the other section, but same desk, but foreigners section and register again. Right? So this F5 is completely foreigner, treated as a foreigner. And one of the big differences is if you have F4 visa, you can use your Korean name and your national or citizenship name. So I'll be Korean Joon Park, but I could also use Park Joon-gyu, which is my Korean name. But when I switched to F5, they said, no, you can't do that anymore. You can only use your foreign nationality name or your citizenship name. So I'm introducing myself. I have to introduce myself as Korean Joon Park because I have no paper, I have no ID to say that legally that I am Park Joon-gyu. Right? So this is how this Korean diaspora, the concept of Korean diaspora is changing, right? And living here for 30 years and going back and forth and also engaging with American society, friends and also civic organizations, I'm seeing who am I in a sense. And people ask, I still ask, do you like living in the US or do you like living in South Korea? Right? And it's like, well, it depends, right? And do you consider United States your mother country or home country, or do you consider South Korea your home country? I don't know. I like to live in EU, someplace in the EU also, in Philippines or Vietnam. Right? It's no longer that I belong to one place. We lived in this period where we have naturalized a cultural concepts. Right? We are not rooted in one place. We are human beings. We have feet. We have biggest abilities that we can walk around, move around. And as a humanity, we are now Homo sapien. We are living like this because we left this place that is now called Africa and spread all over the world. Right? And that's Homo sapien in a sense. So why do we root ourselves in one nation, one place? Especially in the age of global migration, shouldn't we imagine a new community, a new group of people or identity where it's much more global, transnational? Right? So actually, scholars are coming up with ideas like flexible citizenship, dual citizenship, triple citizenship. So nationality, you think nationality is like genes, you cannot change. But more and more young people and many people are saying, no, it's just a tool, it's a paper, a process that you go through. And you can, like a spec, you call it in Korean, a talent or a career development. So having 2 or 3, might as well. Learning different languages, right, helps you. Having multiple citizenship will help you. That's what it means in a sense. So we have global Koreans who have multiple citizenship. And here, I like to end with the introduction of a K-diaspora. What is K in K-pop? And anthropologists argued that K is not Korean. It's a symbolic term that is global and transnational. Right? So K-pop, what is the biggest popular group in K-pop? Blackpink. Are they all Korean? BTS, are they all Korean? Is it Korean? I don't know. I think BTS is all Korean. But the 동방신기 or the other idol groups, important idol groups, are not mixed. Right? And there's actually K-pop group who are all foreigners now. Right? Lisa and what's her name? Hana of New Jeans. Right? Hana is a very interesting case, I think. Right? This Vietnamese Australian coming, right? Speaks a little bit of Korean. Lisa, Thai. Right? They are very active image, part of K-pop. So John Lee, Korean American anthropologist, says the K is much more historical. It's all this hybrid culture of K. When Korean society openly, actively took this open identity, global, the world loved it. Right? So why do we close it? Why do we limit it? Right? The tendency they want to, it must be Korean national. No, in popular culture, it's all opening. So Korean diaspora is such and such that we learn. K-diaspora is a place, a South Korea, global Korea, where many, many people come and find a new homeland in this region, and connecting to their homeland too, other homeland too, right? And creating a new opportunities, a new community in South Korea. And that's what I wanted to also be part of building this community. Thank you very much. Sorry for overgrowing the time here.